Hey, everybody. I have not done a video in a while. It is Sunday, and it was kind of a beautiful day out. And before I go out, enjoy this gorgeous weather that we have in Toronto, Canada, because it's been winter here. I thought I'd give you guys a little gift and go through something that I do with my students. That helps them deal with the psychology of trading a little bit better. Okay? Now, um, many traders say trading is all about psychology, and I used to struggle massively with my psychology, and psychology is one of those things that it's a process to learn tools, techniques, and tips. And I have an entire 2-hour video in my course that covers how specifically to deal with your psychology when you're trading, and how not to make mistakes. And I want to show you an example here of what I'm talking about. Now, let's assume that I am interested in taking a trade. And let's assume that I believe this level right here would be a good place for me to take a long position. So I'm going to buy here and assume that my stop is going to be down here and my target is going to be up here. Okay? Now, what I would like you to do before you take a trade is to ask yourself, what if the opposite were to happen? Okay? The brain is a really interesting piece of mechanics. I want to prove something to you right now. The first thing that I want to prove to you is extremely important, so pay very close attention, okay? Because I'm about to prove to you that how many of you are uncomfortable yet? What I did there was I stopped my sentence halfway through what I was trying to lead you to believe. And as soon as I stopped that, how many of you started to, first of all, think, oh, the video is broken. What's wrong? There's something going wrong here, right? And maybe started to feel uncomfortable. Maybe I should turn this off. Maybe I should go to another video. Well, the human brain has the fantastic ability to complete things. In other words, once you put your attention on something, the human brain has this massive desire to complete it. Okay? And if you don't complete it, it becomes very uncomfortable. It starts looking for answers or excuses or reasons. Okay, I want to point that out. Let me just write that down because it's really super important. Okay, I'm going to pause this. I accidentally closed the recorder, so I'm going to have to add to the video and splice them together. So the human brain likes to complete things. So if you do not complete a task or complete a sentence or complete a trade, you will start to feel very uncomfortable. Okay? And that uncomfortableness is what causes people to start to behave in very strange ways. So how do we kind of combat that as traders? Okay, so let's say I want to buy the SPDRY at 272, and I think there's going to be a stop here. Well, one of the things that I like to do is I like to kind of complete the trade in my brain before the trade happens. So that way, when no matter what happens, I'm prepared. So what I'll actually do is I'll actually, just close that here, what I'll actually do is I'll actually kind of play this out and imagine this in my mind. Okay, so if we take a look at this chart here, right, and we see the market is coming down, coming down, coming down, we get to this level here, and this is where I'm going to take my trade. Okay, so what I do is I actually will draw this out on a piece of paper, and I'll say, okay, how could this trade play out if I'm right? Okay, the market goes higher, higher, higher. I'm at my target, I'm happy. Okay? But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't do that happen? What if the market goes like this, like this, like this, like this? I'm at my target, I'm happy. Okay? What if it doesn't do that? What if the market does this, does this, does this, does this, and then does that? I'm at my target, I'm happy. Okay, so I kind of play, I actually draw this out on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and then what I do is I draw out the opposite. What if I'm wrong? What if the market does this, right, does this, looks like it's going to work, and then does this and stops me out, right? What if the market does this, does this, does this, does this, and then stops me out? What if the market just goes straight against me and stops me out? So what I've actually done is I have played out various scenarios that can happen to this market, and I've kind of completed it already, haven't I? Right? So I've given my brain 6 possible scenarios for completion here. All right, and I physically do this. I actually draw this on a piece of paper. Okay, and so I'll get the 8.5 piece of paper, and I use colored pens. I'll use a black pen, and then I'll use a red pen, and I'll use a green pen, and I'll draw that out. Okay, now so when the market ultimately does what the market's going to do, we just go forward here. I get stopped out. Okay. I've got completion in my mind. What happened is I completed it before it happened. Okay? The market continues here. Right? And now I want to reevaluate that trade. Right? So now what I do is I say, you know what, I still like this trade. I'm going to get long here because my bias is for longs, and this time my target is way up here. I start all over again from scratch. Okay, get a brand new piece of paper here, and we'll just do it. A brand new sheet here. New. Okay, so this is what we have the market doing right now. Okay, we use black. Market's here, 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 and now we're here. So let's draw it out. Okay, I first draw the positive out, right? So the market's going to go straight up to my target, right? I feel that. I just sit there and look at that for a few seconds. Market could do this and go to my target. The market could do this and slowly go to my target. Okay? Then I draw the opposite out. What's the worst case scenario? Market drops straight down, right? And what's the next case scenario? Market goes up higher, right? Then comes back down, stops me out. Maybe the market goes sideways for a while and stops me out. So again, I'll have this piece of paper, this 8.5 by 10 piece of paper, beside me, and I actually keep a binder. I don't know if you've ever used the Cambridge binders, and I'll actually draw the name out and the trade out, and I'll put the name of the stock up here, you know, Spider, right? And I'll actually write that on the piece of paper and I'll have it there. So I've actually completed that in my brain, okay? And so now, when the trade plays itself out, I go, oh, okay, you know, that was no fun, right? And then there you have the hack. Ultimately, I would have probably done it again right here, and I would have played it out here. And what this does is, this was not really the greatest example, because a lot of times, let's say you're in a trade right here. Let's say I got into a long trade right here. It just keeps you really cool during the trade. So let's say that I got into a long trade right here, and I'm interested in the trade. Now you can see here, let's say my target was up here. Okay. Now when I draw that out, see how the trade kind of goes sideways for a little while in this particular context right here? Okay. In this particular context, the trade is going sideways. Now during that time, it helps me keep really super cool, because I'm constantly drawing that out, and I'm glancing over at the possibility of what the outcome of this trade could be. Okay, I know this sounds very, very silly, but I've been doing this for 30 something years, folks. I can't even remember anymore now, and I can't tell you how much this helps me psychologically. And I learned this from a very powerful clinical psychologist. This isn't something that I just made up on my own. This is something that I learned from science-based psychology. This isn't just me playing some game, right? I can deal with this situation once I complete it in my mind. So what's the alternative? And I don't know if you've ever done this, but let's say you decide to take a trade here, and the trade ends up, you don't do what I say, and the trade ends up stopping out. How many of you, and believe me when I tell you, it's very, very common, will jump right back into that trade without having a valid entry? Because you're so attached to the idea that the market is going to go higher, right? In this I'll give you a very good example. In these contexts that I'm looking at right here on this particular spider, my bias, based on all of my fundamental analysis, was to be buying the spider. So I wanted to be buying the spider, but you can see here that if I would have bought here and it didn't work out, got stopped out, bought here, didn't work out, got stopped out, bought here and didn't work out, got stopped out. Finally, I buy here, it ends up working. Buy here, it doesn't work. Buy here, it doesn't work. Buy here, it ends up working, right? Now, the point being that my bias fundamentally was to be buying the spider based upon the fundamentals of this particular market. So I wanted to be buying it, but when I get stopped out, my position sizing is always going to be in line with my money management, because there are many times you are going to be correct about market direction, but how that market moves in that direction is really super important. And one of the greatest things that I find that blows traders' accounts is doubling, right? So they're very confident, you're very confident due to your analysis. You're confident, right? So your brain is expecting an outcome. And your brain is going to become attached to that outcome. Okay? It's going to become attached to that outcome. However, if you just leave your brain alone and the outcome doesn't happen, your brain is going to want completion, right? And that's the whole thing. So by drawing, by creating multiple possible outcomes by our little thing, we calm our brain. We calm our brain down, and then And then when we decide, if we're going to decide to re-enter based on our analysis, we can be objective. Okay? We can be objective. If you do not create these multiple outcomes, okay, you will lose objectivity, and you will see things that are not there. And or the worst thing is you will increase your trade size, and that equals death. 100%. Every time I lose on a trade, I am constantly decreasing my bet size. Okay? Equals happiness. Okay, now I do this through a very specific money management technique, again, that I spend 2 hours teaching to my students. Okay? Happiness 100%. Okay? So, there's two things we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to remain objective, and one of the great ways we do that is by actually creating multiple outcomes in our brain so that we can keep our objectivity based upon our bias. Okay? Now I know most of you that are watching this might go, yeah, whatever. But I can guarantee you, whether you do it today or whether you do it tomorrow, ultimately what will happen is that you will take a trade, it won't work, you'll get stopped out, you'll double up. The trade won't work again, you'll get stopped out, you'll double up. Okay? And you'll think, oh my God, I'm going to double up again. And then you take a trade and it will ultimately work. Okay? Now, you might think you're a genius, and you might think that's great, but here's what will happen. You will take your next trade, and it won't work, and you'll double up. You'll take your next trade, and it won't work, and you'll double up. You'll take your next trade, and it won't work, you'll get stopped out, you'll double up. You'll take your next trade, it won't work, you'll get stopped out, and you'll double up. And by this time, you will blow your account. This is the way that 99% of traders, including myself, I don't want to sound like I'm some hero here, guys. This is the way that traders constantly blow their accounts, and ultimately the trade will go and work in their direction. And the reason why this happens is because they have lost objectivity and they have become attached to an idea or a situation. Okay? You don't need to buy any books, guys. You don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on psychologists like I have. And trust me, I have. I am not immune to these problems. But over the course of my 28, 30-year career as a trader, I have learned different ways to hack my brain to help me deal with these psychological issues. Okay? And the two that are most important is to create completion, in other words, to be able to accept what will happen when you're wrong. And the second most important is to always develop the habit of decreasing your bet size on the next trade. Because like I said, your ideas can be rock solid, but you don't know how those ideas will actually play out. Okay? And then ultimately when the market does go higher, you're going to end up with a shitload of frustration, anger, confusion, and you're going to be out there buying some other guy's course when all you have to do is stick to what you know and learn to control yourself by using some of these tips and hacks. And really the greatest tip is when I decrease my bet size. I do the exact opposite of what most traders do, which is increase their bet size. I'm constantly decreasing my bet size when I trade. Now, there is an exception to that. Let's say I'm bullish on the market. Occasionally, what I will do is I will scale into a position. So I might take, let's say my total trade is going to be, 1,000 shares. I might do 250 long here, and then the trade doesn't work. I might do 250 long here. The trade does not work, but I only have 1/2 of my trade size on. And then finally we get down to a level that I really like, okay, and I might do 500 here. But I had that intention the entire time, okay? I had that intention. And I also will play that out. So let me give you an example how that can look. Let's say that I want to scale into a position. What I'll actually do is I will play it out. So I'll say, okay, here's the market right here, right? Forgive me. And I want to get long the market right here. So what I'll do is I'll actually write it in here, like 200, right? And I'll actually draw this on a piece of paper and I'll play it out. So if I am right, if I am right, I will go, okay, and then I'll add in here 200, right? So I'll add to the winner, but then I'll also play it out like this. I'll say, this, right? And then I'll add in here 200, okay? And then I'll play it out. I'll actually write it out again here, and I'll go 300, okay? Or I'll run the bad scenario too, where I'll say, if I'm wrong, and then I'll say 300. So again, I'm drawing this on a piece of paper and I am running the scenario, and then I'll complete this, right? I'll say, well, what happens if the market goes higher like that? Happy. And what if the market goes higher like this? Or like this? Okay? Or what if I'm wrong? What if the market goes up like this? Okay? And like this. Now, it seems really silly, but believe it or not, having this sheet of paper right beside me as the market is happening, it allows me, again, to, no matter what happens, remain objective on my next decision. Okay? So that's a little hack. Believe me, try it for a month and you will be amazed at just how calm and cool you are the next time you are in a trade. It will relieve a tremendous amount of anxiety from you. And don't just imagine it. Don't draw it out. And you can actually, I don't know if you want to take it this far, you can meditate on it. So, for example, let's say I'm in a big trade and the market's opening. What I'll actually do is I'll actually meditate. What will happen if I'm right and the trade takes off like that? And I'll visualize it in my mind. And I'll remain calm. And then I'll imagine what will happen if the trade does this. And I'll actually visualize it, feel those feelings, and I'll run through the trade in my mind. Now, if you think I'm being really silly and crazy, well, you might think that, but some of the top athletes in the world use this exact same technique. I'm talking Olympic gold medalists. It's very common in sports psychology to sit and visualize you winning the race or you being behind in the race and then catching up and winning the race. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to, and the reason why it does that is it puts your brain at rest by stopping that very, very powerful thing that is called uncomfortable silence, okay? Or, and again, it goes back to the point, your brain is an answer-finding machine. That is what it was built to do. And when it doesn't find the answers, it causes your brain to go into hyper overdrive. So give your brain the answers beforehand, both good and bad, and you will have one of the greatest trading hacks of your life. Okay? Don't buy any more psychology books. Just do this one exercise. There's a couple of other things that I teach inside my trading course. If you really struggle with it, learn money management. There's some specific other psychology hacks that I give inside my trading course. And you will never blow an account again. I promise you, if you do this and you use the right money management, those things. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you, and bye for now.